Man, I want to lie to you and have you mount all the cool lights to all your guns and run and gun like that, but that's just not practical.
So this video was recommended to me through a comment, so let's react to it. And this is my second time reacting to this because the first time was rather unsavory towards the character of Mike Glover. So this time, let's be a little more fair when we tackle this.
What I've realized over time is this Victor 1, for example, from Surefire, is a good standalone light.
A lot of handheld lights from Surefire are good standalone lights. G2X is around $80, which is maybe a little much for a handheld. And then they have other solutions that are $300, which is quite a lot. You really don't need an expensive handheld light to get started in the game of EDC lights. Take a look at Streamlight, for instance.
If you mount that to your everyday carry pistola, then you're limiting your ability.
No. Weapon-mounted lights have a place. Handheld lights have a place. Have both. Go nuts. I'm not your dad. He's not your dad. Go nuts.
One of the reasons you're limiting your ability is because a light tethered to your gun doesn't allow you to use a light in utility. Yes, you can carry multiple lights if you're into that.
Yeah, I am into that. I'm using a handheld light to search for things in the dark, and I'm using a weapon-mounted light to defend myself in the dark. And how I would otherwise use a handheld light in conjunction with a handgun is pretty close to the gun, so it would be advantageous of me to have a weapon-mounted light to my weapon. There's techniques where you can use a handheld light separate from the gun. Sure, but there's plenty of other techniques you can use to get that light pretty damn close to your gun. At that point, why not have a weapon-mounted light? I get it. Surefire X300s are a little expensive for you. There's cheaper, more affordable options for you. Olights are veritable hand grenades on weapon-mounted systems. And then you have Streamlight, which is what everyone seems to go for when it comes to weapon-mounted solutions. So, go nuts. You know, you don't have to take Mike Glover's advice for fucking everything.
And maybe the answer is carry a light on your gun and carry a light separate from your gun. But I haven't found many justifications for putting a light on the gun.
I don't know. Take a low light course. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, if you were in the military and you had a weapon-mounted light, let's say that the houses you're going into are your own houses and you would want to protect them. Sure, it gives you away, but it's your house. Why are you trying to hide from the bad guys going into your house? Lose the element of surprise? They don't care if you're in there or not. They don't.
And bear with me, naysayers, bear with me.
This is my second time reacting to this because the first time was just, I set it to premiere mode so that before I premiered, if I decided to take a look at it, if I was unsatisfied with how everything turned out, I was going to redo the video. So this is my second time bearing with Mike Glover. So you guys do what you want. Like, comment, share, subscribe. I don't care. You do you.
And let me explain. So I have a cell phone here. This is an iPhone, standard cell phone. You're looking at 12 lumens to 50 lumens.
So we're no longer limited by technology of 2003. We can have weapon-mounted lights that are far better than 12 to 75 lumens. Like the Surefire Millennium lights for weapon-mounted solutions were pretty good for the time period they were in. Surefire X200s, similar lumen output, similar footprint and profile as the X300, but the lights got better, they got brighter, they got smaller, they got more powerful, and the designs got stronger. So we're not limited by light output of the early 2000s and the global war on terror. You can positively identify things in the dark and not just see a silhouette of things moving in the dark with as little lumen output as possible. You don't have to limit yourself anymore. You were limited by technology in the 2000s. We're not anymore. Get good lights, please.
Most people would think or associate lumens with strength or better quality or better lights.
He would be correct, and those people would be wrong. But rather than, saying they're wrong, it would be best if you could explain why they're wrong. Designs means they're strong, lumen outputs means how bright they are, candela means how focused or how far that beam goes to identify things. You have Surefire turbo lights that are doing a pretty good job of identifying things at farther distances. I mean, seriously, just explain it in simple and easy to understand terms, and you wouldn't have so many people thinking a lumen output is, or lumen and brightness is all that matters. Like, no, you're a quote unquote professional. You can explain it in such a way that people would understand and people wouldn't be so misled or misunderstood.
So if I say I got a 10,000 lumens and you got a 5,000 lumens, well, yours is smaller than mine. But that's not the case here.
Sure, you can have a flashlight that doubles as a lightsaber, or you can have a flashlight that is the all-seeing eye of Sauron. Yeah, sure. I mean, if you want a 10,000 lumen light or a million lumen light, go ahead. I'm sure you'll find something on Amazon. But Mike, I just simply want enough lumen and enough candela to see things in the dark. That's all I want. Nothing more, nothing less. If it's mounted on my gun, good. If I got it in my hands, good. I'd like both. I would like both.
Because what we forget often in using lights is that we are giving off a signature in the use of that light, but we are also blinding ourselves with the use of that light.
Yeah, sure. That the guy down the hall probably has 20/20 or similar quality vision that I have, meaning he can't see in the dark, I can't see in the dark. I use a light to see in the dark, he also sees a light in the dark. But unless I turn that light on my own eyes, like I would on his eyes, I'm not blinding myself. If anything, if I shine a light in the dude's eyes, I am doing a blinding, stunning effect more on him than on me. So this next couple of minutes where he's talking about natural night vision is completely stupid. And, when you regain your natural night vision or night sights back is just ridiculous. I don't agree with it whatsoever. And honestly, if you guys agree with it, you're just simply living through his experiences vicariously because you don't have any yourself. And your reason and your logic is piss poor, to say the least.
So this is the Surefire Victor 1, 250 lumens. Most lights now, because this is a little bit old, I'm a little dated. I like the utility of things that work, and this works for me. I don't need the new upgraded version.
I only have two Surefire, so I'm not a fanboy. When I bought the X300 Ultra and when I got the Scoutlight Pro, and they came up with their turbos, I didn't feel the need to completely upgrade for something I didn't feel like I needed, like my dual fuel. Even though it sucks, there's a parasitic drain to the battery. It does the job it's supposed to do if the batteries are charged and the stars align and everything's all good. But again, I'm not upgrading to the latest and greatest new Surefire product. I know guys who would. They love Surefire, and good for them. I just don't want to. I don't see the need to. If I have a handheld light that does the job the best that I want it to do to see things in the dark, I'm not going to upgrade to the latest and greatest model.
But most lights now are 500 lumens. And if you have a 500 lumens light, you could blind yourself by putting out that light from your position for up to 5 seconds.
I really don't see any point in agreeing with what he has to say about shining a light down the hall and blinding yourself. But yeah, sure, I needed a light to see in the dark. If I had natural night vision to see in the dark, I wouldn't have a light to begin with. So blinding, like if I'm looking and searching for a noise that was made down the hall and I can't find it with my natural night vision because I don't have it, and I use a light, I'm using that light to search for things. What the next 5 seconds are after I turn the light off doesn't matter to me. It just doesn't. Any sort of situation he's fabricating to justify his position is straight out of a Hollywood movie. It just is. There's no anecdote, there's no experience, there's no statistic or data to show that people blind themselves after using a light other than, hey, turn on a light on. All right, turn it off. All right. Oh, I can't see in the dark now. Buddy, that's why I had the light.
So I teach SWAT teams as part of what I do.
Yeah, I'm just going to skip ahead because this doesn't apply to people like you or me who need lights to look and search in the dark, whether it's a handheld or weapon-mounted light. It just doesn't. I'm going to skip over the SWAT part.
A living room space. That's your home. That's your domicile. You know it better than anybody's going to know it.
Yeah, oftentimes incorrect for me because even though I've lived in this house for many years now and I've done the decorating and I've done the furniture setup and everything, I still stub the shit out of my toes even with the lights on. So that's your home, that's your domicile, you know it better than anyone. Yeah, I know it better than people who've never been inside of it, but I still stub the shit out of my toes with the lights on or off.
And when you shine that light, you're giving away your position. In the case of SWAT teams...
Yeah, Skip, he's talking about SWAT teams again. This doesn't apply to me very well.
But in a home defense scenario where it's just you providing your own self-defense, when you emit that light, you're giving away your position and you're blinding yourself wherever you look.
Yeah, sure. I'm losing the tactical advantage, the element of surprise by shining a light down a hall in my own home. It's my home. Why am I trying to hide from the bad guys? The bad guys should be trying to hide from me. I don't get it. What's the reasoning here? It's my home. Why am I trying to hide in it?
Here's what I want you to do, because some of you won't believe me.
I'll just simplify the rest of what he's going to say. He's going to say, in easy to understand terms, he's going to say, put a black tape on the wall or have a friend or family member, your spouse, and shine a light on them. Okay, yeah, sure, I get it. You'll lose whatever night vision you have when your eyes are adjusting to the dark. I get that. I don't have natural night vision, hence why lights exist. But for the sake of argument, let's just say you shine a bright light down the hall and then you see what's down the hall. Whether or not you've identified what's making the noise or not, you lose, your eyes adjust to the light so fast that it takes a little bit longer for it to adjust back to the dark. Okay, I get that, but notwithstanding the tactics of shining a light at things and turning it back off, why am I turning the light off? So I can move to another point of domination and my own domicile so I could shine another light down there? If I got rid of my natural night vision by shining a light on, I lose whatever natural night vision I have, so what is the point of moving to another point of domination if I can't see it? Again, he's arguing for a point that you don't need lights because you have natural night vision. No one has natural night vision. Lights exist for a reason.
But you could positively identify friend from foe with less than 100 lumens.
Sure, you can use less than 100 lumens to positively identify something in the dark. Sure, my low light setting on my handheld is enough to identify things in the dark, but it is not the point. The point is to both ID something and stun it at the same time. Hence why my handheld has a strobe effect to it, a really fast strobe effect. Really not the point, man.
I mean, look at the light on your cell phone. If that's 50 lumens, and you did the same thing that I told you to do with 500 lumens, you will cut that time in half.
Then again, I'm not using my iPhone light to see threats in the dark or to find things making noises in the dark. I'm using my iPhone light to sometimes find the keyhole on my front door. I am sometimes helping other people with my light to also find the keyhole because it's dark at night. Whoop-de-doo, right? Who would have thought? It's like lights exist for a reason. But let's for a moment say that if you're so down bad that the only light you have is on your iPhone, that thing that was making noises in the dark, you see a shape or a figure, but you cannot ID it as friend or foe, and then you shoot at it, and then it turns out it wasn't a foe, it was a friend or a confused drunk person that found his way in your home, you might be in some hot water for it.
I also think about the position that I'm in with my pistola. So in this case, I have my SIG 320. I have my fancy Leupold red dot optic. I'm sight hunting, right? I'm looking for potential threats. I always want you to orient, that's so funny, such a funny word. I want you to orient your eyes where the gun is. Because if your eyes are oriented where your gun is not, because you don't have a shooting solution, when you identify potentially a threat, then you're potentially dead. It only takes 0.2 of a second on average of somebody's reaction time.
Well, shit, it's like the accessory rail that comes on most modern handguns, polymer and alloy frames, is there for a reason. It seems like those holster makers and companies making light-bearing holsters, it's like they're making those holsters for a reason. It seems like most modern duty and personal defense carry options for holsters that are light-bearing exist for a reason. It's almost as if carrying a light on your gun and carrying that gun is as comfortable as it possibly could be, is by in part, on purpose, on some level. It sounds like he's discovering this for the first time.
So if a barrel of a gun is pointed at you and your gun's oriented this way and you identify the threat this way, well, that's not going to work.
It's almost as if this exists for a reason and this exists for a similar purpose, but to do the same job with greater safety. By the way, this one's brighter.
So if you're thinking about your perspective as well, or in this case, let's think about the bad guy's perspective. If I have a pistol and it's in line with my eyes.
I'm going to skip ahead because I'm not trying to look at this from the bad guy's perspective. I'm trying to look at this from a homeowner's perspective. How can I operate a handheld light and a weapon-mounted light as safely as I can without being told you don't need one or the other because you have natural night vision or whatever tactical mumbo-jumbo buzzword is being used today in this video?
If you use a light behind your gun, you're illuminating the gun, which is the sights, but exactly where your position is at. I mean, you might as well just do this.
So we're now back to the previous point where you're giving your position away. If I have these, I'm not going to try to give my position away as best I can. It's to ID whatever is making the noise down the hall, in the other room, and it's to see if it's a friend or foe or one of my pets that, you know, is having the midnight 3 o'clock zoom.
And in self-defense, where you have the ability in close confined spaces, most often, carry it with one hand, allow your hand to float and orient in the direction of your eyes, and segment this.
Yeah, sure. Handheld lights are good and all, and you can segment whatever you want, right? Yeah, sure. Like, I get that. Look, I'm not stupid. I agree with him on this point, but that doesn't defeat the purpose and the utility of having a weapon-mounted light. It just doesn't. This is why I appreciate John Lovell and his take on this, because he is both for handheld lights and he is also for weapon-mounted lights, because there's pros and cons to both. There's advantages to having both, so have both. It's really that simple.
One of the best things I like tactical night fighting tacticians to teach.
You know, I can really give it to Mike Glover. He can roll out with all the tactical buzzwords, guru nonsense, and it's really impressive. Like, he knows the script really well, and it's got more to do with him being a salesman than him being a, you know, firearms expert, tactician, trainer, right? Because a trainer would tell you to use every possible advantage you can get, hence why you have a firearm. You want to put yourself at a greater advantage of surviving than the other guy, because the other guy's not going to play or fight fair with you unless it's legally neutral combat and, you know, you're fighting with your fists. But in the streets, in your home, fight dirty.
Is the use of reflection of your flashlight off of walls.
This is why I like lights. You can use a weapon-mounted light safely, so you're not violating the firearm safety rule. Never point at anything you don't intend to destroy. Look, we get that. But if you don't have a light and you're just aiming at random noises in the dark, you're not identifying what's your target and what's beyond it. So have a light, have a weapon mounted light, have a handheld, be safe, have the best of both worlds. Natural night vision's fucking stupid.
Where you think something is. And then where's the bad guy hiding? In the dark, where he should be.
Yeah, bad guys hide in the dark. They do their evil deeds oftentimes at dark, so have a handheld light, have a weapon mounted light, be safe, be courageous, don't be a coward, don't hide and run from the bad guy. They should be running and hiding from you. Make them flee from your presence. Make them scared of you. Having a weapon mounted light is advantageous. Having a handheld light is a bit more safer. But if you're using a handheld light in conjunction with your handgun, if you're doing the flashlight under your wrist, or you're doing the wrist to wrist or back of the hand method that Ken Hagathorn says, that light is pretty damn close to your gun. So have a weapon mounted light.
Where I would never need a gun in line with this light because I'm using it in utility.
I have a guest and she's making biscuits. And to the point that you should be using lights in utility, yeah, sure. Like, they're geared for specific purposes and driven for certain aspects of self-defense. I get that. Like, a handheld light is more useful than a weapon-mounted light. I'm not arguing with that. What I am arguing is that natural night vision is not a thing. The tactical buzzword guru nonsense that you hear from these guys don't necessarily apply to you, and neither should they. And the reason why he has a weapon mounted light and I do is for distinctly different purposes. He doesn't see a need to have a weapon mounted light. I see a need to see in the dark with my gun. It's really that simple. Like, yeah, I use my handheld more often than I do my weapon light. Then again, I don't use my weapon often enough to justify having it. So what's the point of being a gun owner if you're not going to use it to defend yourself? Unless you're in the firearms thing for the aspect of them being fun and putting money where you don't want the government taxing it. So good for you, man.
The right answer is carrying both a light on your gun and this.
Well, it's a good thing I have the correct answer in this case, even though how I got to those conclusions are not coded in the firearms tactical guru nonsense that so many people are getting caught up in because they're not using their reasoning or their logic. They're living vicariously through lived experiences of other people. So, have both, guys. Seriously, the man said it, have both.
I am very smart about my tactics in doing that.
Sure, be as smart as you want, but you can never prepare for the uncertainty of the wickedness that is in this world. That's why, for many of us who recognize that, we have guns. For many of us who recognize that we need to see in the dark because many bad things happen in the shadows, we want to illuminate those shadows and see evil there. So, the smarter thing to do is to always be prepared no matter what situation. You have to be prepared for the unknown, the uncertain, the inevitable. That's why we have guns, that's why we have accessories, and that's why lights have gotten better over time.
I don't want to be outside, where the majority of self-defense actions happen at night.
So the reason why I'm cutting it short here is because even though you don't want to be outside when the majority of self-defense encounters happen, sometimes evil finds you, and evil comes at you in the dark. So even if you're being smart and you're not outside late at night, evil will find you. Evil will find you in the presence of a home invasion. So have lights, have weapons, be safe, be prepared, be reasonable in your approach in handling this sort of situation that could likely happen. Because you don't get to choose the next fight you're in, if you're in the next fight.
But we're not always going to be in that self-defense encounter in the middle of an open parking lot with ambient light where you shine the light from your gun oriented at the bad guy.
Again, you don't get to choose the fight you're in. You don't get to choose the terms and conditions of your self-defense encounter. It is often, the decision for that is often made for you by whoever decides to take advantage of you. You're at the mercy in terms and conditions of whoever is trying to harm you, not the other way around.
You got to think about angles, you got to think about reflection, and most certainly you got to think about your position and looking at light.
Yeah, sure, I should be taking every possible advantage I can, but the end goal is for me to survive at the end of the prospecting possible encounter that I may have in the future. Not necessarily being overtrained for something, but being aware that something may happen and coming up with these tactical buzzwords again to justify this position that may never happen. I hope to God it never does, but again, you don't get to choose to fight, you don't get to pick the location, you don't get to pick the conditions you're fighting in, and this is ultimately why I think Mike Glover is well-intentioned here, but is selling snake oil, especially when he's working with the bro vets hype beast at GBRS. And guys, before you get upset at me for saying what's your, you're an overweight fatty, what's your lived experiences, what is your position here? My position is be prepared for these situations that you hope to God never happens, but you don't get to pick the fight you throw yourself into. Often the fight picks you.
Yeah, sure, 500 lumens will blind the heck out of a bad guy, but it will also do the same to you. Remember that.
I mean, sure, like, I'm using a light to search for things. I'm not really super concerned what happens 5 seconds after I turn the light off. Odds are I probably found that thing that I needed a light to begin with.
And again, I hope you guys have a good day and, stay safe out there. It's an evil world we live in.